tuning in to the Illuminations Podcast. We love having you here. It is our mission to be a beacon of light on your journey towards conscious and mindful living. In our weekly episode, we bring you inspiring change makers in the field of spirituality, healing, personal growth, and wellness who share their insight and expertise so you can navigate your way to a happier, healthier, and more purposeful life. Welcome to yet another episode of the Illuminations Podcast. My name is Soniyaa, and I am your host for today. In this episode, we talk about healing shame, being more self-compassionate so you can live a more abundant life. We have a very inspiring guest, Kavita Srinivasan, former editor-in-chief of Cosmopolitan Middle East, Hello Magazine, and MASALA. After a decade in publishing, she faced a deep postpartum distress, leading her to discover a newfound purpose in parenting. She became a certified parenting coach and has an MA and PhD in holistic psychology from the California Institute of Integral Studies. Kavita shares her personal struggles with her childhood trauma and abandonment, and her mission is now to support parents in raising whole and happy children, drawing from her own personal experiences and weekly columns in the Khaleej Times. So thank you, Kavita, for having us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Sons. And the PhD has not yet happened, but it will. I just finished my master's.
Well, congratulations on that milestone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
All right. So before we start, I'd like to first take a deep dive in. If you can elaborate the concept of shame and how does it manifest in our everyday life?
You know, the sad thing is that shame, the reason why it's so important to even actually become aware of what shame is it's everywhere. It's like the breath that we take. We do everything in our lives with shame. Shame is simply when you don't feel good enough. You know, when you say, I should be doing this, and you don't do that, then there is shame. Whenever you feel not good enough, or whenever you feel that there's something about you that's damaged, or that you're not living up to your expectations of the people around you, when you compare yourself to other people, shame is simply not feeling good enough.
And we can safely say that this is inherited and rooted from our childhood, because I think the first people we're looking for love and approval from is our parents. And when we don't get that love and approval, we feel like we're not good enough. And in our adult life, we end up trading that approval to gain love. But behind that, the intention comes from a deep-rooted feeling of shame.
You know, us human beings have only 4 main requirements. We need to be seen, to be loved, to feel safe, and to be heard. Okay? And whenever any of these requirements are not met, then we feel not good enough. There must be something wrong with me, that my parents are not understanding me. And one of the saddest things that I heard, was this saying or this post that I read a while ago that said, when you talk rudely to your child or when you are angry with your child will never hate you. They'll just begin to hate themselves because they will feel like there's something wrong with them, that you are not paying attention to them or giving them what they need. What is wrong with me that mommy and daddy are not listening to me or wanting to be around me, or I don't feel loved by them? There must be something wrong with me. And that is the heart of shame. There is something wrong with me, you know?
And with that intention and with that feeling, a lot of what we do, you see people who are super disciplined, they work out every morning, they go to the gym, it's like they offer their life in this sort of regiment.
Yeah.
And from the outside world, it seems very, amazing. It seems so successful. Yeah. They seem so balanced, but it's being driven from all of this shame and not being good enough. So how can we change that, to kind of become more of a heart-driven, discipline rather than just being driven by this feeling of constantly not being good enough?
So how do we change looking on the outside to feel better, right? Through, it's so funny when you say that, when people are workaholics or they're constantly in the gym or they look perfect. People whose hair is done, whose face is perfect, who are just, so particular about their self-care, which it may look to the outside world like they really love themselves. You're so right that a lot of the time these things are coming because without that sort of external validation, then they feel horrible about themselves, right? So it's really important, number one, to point out that what you see is really not what the truth is.
Right.
What you see on the outside, you have no idea what is going on the inside of that human being, you know? How do you change it? Sons, I just feel like it's really complicated and it's really simple. What is it you feel? What do you need? What do you really need when you're going through a hard time?
You need support.
What else do you need?
You need faith. You need trust in your own ability and resources. And you just need love.
Yeah, right? Like, when in my darkest of times, I don't need someone to do my hair or to put makeup on me or to, I don't know, buy me a handbag. I just need someone to just sit there with me and hold my hand, right?
And show up for you.
I need to just be safe. I need to feel held by that person without that person giving me advice, without that person telling me what to do to feel better, and without that person telling me what I did wrong to make me feel this way and how I should stop behaving like that so I feel better. Right? So, unfortunately, a lot of the time we look on the outside for this sort of presence. There's only two people in this world who could have given us that presence in a way that would build our foundation. And those two people are our parents. Okay? After the age of 25, it is no longer their responsibility. We are full-grown adults, and what they did not give us, we need to give ourselves.
100%.
So, how do you change from shame to compassion is by giving yourself what you did not get. When you are feeling, okay, let's just take an example because these things are best expressed through examples. I gained a lot of weight after I gave birth to my child. We all go through weight fluctuations, and I felt absolutely awful every time I looked at myself, and I could not stop eating. Food had become my comfort. Food had become my crutch, And I remember when I started therapy, I went to therapy for years, and then finally I met this, I think I was in the right place, and I met the right therapist for me, and she said something that really stayed with me. I used to go to the fridge in the middle of the night and eat like half a cake, not because I was hungry, because I think there was a hole within me that I was trying to fill, and I thought cake would fill that, and you do feel full till you feel empty again. And she said,
it's a dopamine hit.
Whatever, dopamine hit, or a feeling of fullness, or a feeling of comfort, and she said, just eat the cake. Just eat the cake and eat it with love, and tell yourself this, Kavita, you need the cake right now. Your cake has been your mother, the cake has been your nurture when you didn't have any. So eat the cake, and I'm here with you while you eat the cake. So it's so funny. The moment I started letting myself eat the cake, and I held my hand lovingly as I ate the cake.
Without judging yourself.
I didn't want the cake anymore, because the cake was love, but what I was missing was true love. So when I sat with myself looking at this person at 1:00 in the morning, shoving cake into her mouth without really even chewing it. Now, the outside world would have looked at me as being extremely unwell and she needs to get some help, that sort of look, what's wrong with her? It's 4 years since she had a baby. Shouldn't she be losing her weight, But then I looked at myself with love and I said, it's okay. I understand why you're eating the cake and I love you and I'm here with you. So when you actually sit with yourself in your ugliest and darkest moments and just allow yourself to play out those moments with presence, that is the beginning. When we just look at ourselves with love as opposed to, God, there's something wrong with me. Why am I eating this cake? Or there's so many other instances, right? What's wrong with me? Why can't I hold down a relationship? What's wrong with me? Why did I not get that promotion? What's wrong with me? Why do I not have the job that I want? What's wrong with me? Why is my child behaving this way? And you just stop and you give yourself that permission to feel that way.
I recently read somewhere that your life changes not by, the statements you make, but by the powerful questions that you ask. And so rather than saying that what's wrong about me, one of my practitioners or coaches, reframed it and said, what is right about me that I'm not getting?
Yeah.
And just by putting it out there to existence or the universe and keep replaying that question to yourself, you will automatically see your life change. And, a lot of your skills and your attributes will start to show up where you'll be more self-compassionate towards yourself rather than trying to always judge yourself at every given stance. And, in this whole wellness world, it's very easy to get sucked in to this constant need of self-improvement, this constant need to label everything as trauma or blaming your parents or blaming everything that's happened in your childhood as a result. And as you rightfully mentioned, that after the age of a certain age, it is 100% your responsibility, given the awareness that you now have, to be able to make that change or shift. So I'd like to talk about the concept of having boundaries, because I know this is something which is largely related to gaining love and approval. And I was listening to a podcast with Oprah and Arthur Brooks, who's a Harvard happiness professor. And he talks about, there are two ways we say yes. Number one way of saying yes is because we want something, so we're trying to gain love or we're trying to gain approval. And the other way of saying yes is because we love, because it's an act of service to humanity. So in the first instant, when we say yes, when we don't really feel like doing something because we want to gain love and approval, either from a partner or from a parent or from anybody at large, right? But saying yes because you do something because you really feel for that person. So regardless of whether the person gives you anything back, or regardless of whether the job pays you back, or regardless of anything, you're doing it because you just purely love. And I really loved that analogy. So can you tell us, because I know a lot of people in the wellness space talk about boundaries. How would you interpret that?
So Sonia, it's so complicated. I mean, I just want to rewind to what you said about asking the right question. What is it that's right about me? And I'll be really honest with you. I think that's step 3 for me. I think step 1 is because, sometimes you don't even believe that there's anything right about you. So many of us, when you ask that question, what is right about me, but you feel a different way, it just feels like I must find something that's right about me. I must find something, it's a head-driven thing. That's step 3. I think first step is to just ask nothing. It's just to be and just to hold with energy, like that one example that I gave you. And then from that moment is when we build up, because boundaries are very difficult to build in a healthy way. Because when we are filled with shame, and we completely feel not good enough, we will do anything to make ourselves feel good enough.
Boundaries become very blurred.
We don't have any. We don't have any. We will invite any relationship that, have you ever seen with children, when you see a child behaving badly? I mean, I believe all children are good. Behaving is just a symptom, but badly, where they're doing the same thing over and over again, and their mother or father is like, why does he not listen to me? Stop it. Because negative attention is at least attention. When the parent is too busy, when they do something wrong, at least their parent notices that they're there, So this boundary thing is a very complicated thing, because even if you're in a toxic relationship, even if that person is not good for you, even if you're in a bad work situation, at least it's something. At least it's something, because without that, you have nothing. You have nothing. And so would you rather have nothing? Or would you rather be in a toxic relationship? It's a very strange conundrum till you actually fill yourself from bottom up with that sort of unconditional presence in your darkest and ugliest times, you know? And then the boundaries naturally emerge from there simply because you'll stop needing that.
Right.
The more time you spend with yourself alone, with that kind of presence in your darkest times, and just hold your hand and just say, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm listening. I'm here. You'll just stop needing that. You'll stop needing that toxic relationship. You'll stop needing it. And that's when boundaries naturally, organically form, where you stop needing something that is not good for you, because you start feeling good inside because you're giving yourself the presence that you need, you know?
Yeah, but what about in the other end? Like, for example, when I'm going through a challenging time, I often feel I have too many of these boundaries, you know? I don't let people in very easily. And that could be another coping mechanism.
Yes.
So rather than having no boundaries, having extreme boundaries.
Yes.
Because I find myself often like an avoidant personality. So
I know. I know.
and this avoidant pattern is very evident, you know, in my relationships. It's been evident even at work, you know, if anything makes me feel uncomfortable or if I'm going through a challenging time, rather than bringing so many people into my space or actually needing anyone, I convince myself that I don't need anyone and I can do it all on my own.
Yeah.
And that can also be very, you know, burdening on a person as well. So that can be the other extreme of how shame shows up in our life.
Completely. And, you know, I want to correct myself. What I said is for both. Because an avoidant personality is just somebody who hasn't gotten any, you know, a classic avoidant personality, avoidant attachment comes from not getting physical touch or love or presence from their parents.
Right.
Like, you know, you don't have that physical attention, then you become avoidant because that is your natural way of comfort.
Right.
Your comfort, what is my language of love? That my being ignored or being by myself is the language of love, right? So the more you are with yourself in those difficult moments, you will reach a healthier balance.
Right.
You know, it's the same thing. People who feel empty without no one reach out. People who feel empty and have to block themselves. Just soften yourself with your own presence. And then you'll get a healthier attachment to yourself.
Right.
And then the more intimate you are with yourself, the more intimacy you will be able to invite from the outside world. The solution or the healing is the same. You know, it's just feeling full of yourself in a good way, you know, being intimate with yourself. So how intimate are you with yourself? Because the lack of intimacy is what creates all of these problems, you know?
And it's just not in the mind, but it's also with like the body, you know, we don't know our bodies and most of our emotions, like your nervous system, all of that is more in the body. It's not just about your mindset or your thoughts or like your beliefs, you know, it's so much, it's ingrained in the body.
It's only the body for me.
Yeah.
I mean, forget the mind.
Yeah.
It's only the body. You know, there's so many people that I work with who can't remember what they went through when they were children, or sometimes the pain is so deep-rooted that it happened when you were, maybe even before you were born. Maybe it was your mother's pain or your father's pain or your ancestral trauma, because we carry 8 generations of blood in our, like just now, you know.
And the unspoken vows, promises,
yes,
joys, and even the pains that they went through, we end up inheriting.
There's so many scientific studies now that the womb that your mother has, the environment of the womb before she even conceives plays such a crucial role. So you don't know. You don't know where any of this is coming from, you know, but your body knows. Your mind doesn't know because you don't consciously remember anything. Right. Your body knows. So the people that I work with, a lot of the time, it's just, you don't even have to talk about it. You don't have to think about it, or you don't have to remember it. You just have to feel it. And there's so many amazing ways for you to shut off that mind so you can feel. The body knows how to heal itself.
100%. I've been recently doing this shamanic prayer on healing ourselves and basically, you know, not being judgmental on ourselves. And so every day, if we kind of can repeat this sort of, or have any sort of practice, you know, or just acknowledge what we're grateful for within ourselves or what we've done, because we're always so like focused on what like did not happen. So what are some other ways? Because you've done a lot of healing, therapy, coaching, and you've been in the space for the last couple of years now.
Yeah.
So how would you tell anyone, for example, who's just new on this journey, like where's that point to start, you know?
You know, everyone's life is so unique,
Yeah.
and everyone's struggle is so unique. So, I mean, we've been talking about shame, right? So how do you replace shame with love? The number one way to do that is to sit with yourself in the dark. But what if you don't even know what the dark is?
Right.
What if you can't go to that pain point? You know, and it always originates in your childhood with your parent, maybe even deeper. But how do you really isolate that and feel the root of it, you know? It's really complicated, but you have to go there, right, with your body.
Or you can come to Illuminations.
You can come to Illuminations, yes. But, you know, for me, there are two kinds of people, if I can just do A and B. One, who have conscious memories of what they've been through in their lives, and two, those who don't, okay? And a lot of people don't. A lot of people just don't. So then how do you... So when you have conscious memories, then you can go to that memory with a therapist or with a healer, and then you feel it in your body, you know, with that sort of container, and you touch that part of your body, and with the right kind of support, you can just be with that, breathe, hold it, and you can release, okay? But what if you don't remember? Then there's, you know, the best thing I've ever done is, you know, breath work is incredible.
Right.
Breath work is incredible. You know, a few years ago, before I even knew, my son was 1 year old, and I didn't even know what was wrong. I met Dr. Shefali and started all of this when he was 3. I went to a shamanic breathwork practice with a friend, and I had no idea. It was my first time. I grew up in the streets of India. I don't really get fevers anymore, you know. But the next day, I had a raging fever of 103 degrees. And I had no idea why. But now that I know, and I look back, the breath work
There's a release.
Released emotion and feeling. It was releasing. It was releasing, you know. So sometimes you don't need to think and remember. Sometimes with the right person,
You don't need to.
you know, you release in a way where your mind shuts off, you know. I didn't continue with that, but now I have recently resumed breath work again. And I just laid down recently and breathed, and I had no idea why I was crying. But my body just heaved with tears, and I felt amazing when I was done. You don't need to think, you just need to feel.
Right.
And you need to be open and brave enough to let yourself feel,
Correct.
you know?
I mean, I've struggled with shame my whole life because I had an issue with my speech.
Yes.
So from the moment that I could ever express myself, I used to
Look at you now.
stammer, right? And it's still there till today.
Yeah.
There is shame, like if I'm trying to pronounce a word like I was doing so earlier or just now, and I'm not able to say it. There's a lot of shame and judgment like towards oneself. So for me to actually be on this podcast and use my voice as a medium, and we were having a very interesting conversation the other day because you are also a very talented astrologer amongst many other things. And you were telling me my wound is in my 3rd house, which is my speech and communication.
Yes.
So many
Wounded healer.
Correct. So many of the times, a lot of the times where we have our pain is also where we have our gift.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to kind of use that gift and then kind of share it or contribute it with the world. So I guess that's my initiative of doing this podcast.
You know,
really.
when I did the first Illuminations podcast, I was like, why is she not doing it?
Yeah.
You
Shame.
know? Shame.
Shame and judgment.
So when you did it this time, I was like, she's finally putting herself out there.
Yeah, because I've done talks.
You're healing.
I've addressed groups of people.
Yeah.
I've addressed, I've done workshops. I've done all of these things, which has got me this far. But the last 8 to 10%, I was still had that imprint of shame of expressing myself. Like, what if I could not communicate and pronounce a word and it goes live on Instagram?
Yeah.
And people are looking at me.
What then, Sons?
And so what?
So
So the healing of that judgment. So you know how they say the fear of public speaking is greater than the fear of death. So we have a great, our fear of judgment, of what people will think of us, is so much more important to us than even our lives, which is crazy if you think about it. But, that's how scared we are, and that's how much love and approval that we're constantly looking for and getting validated.
On the outside.
Yeah, exactly.
But what did you do now? I mean, I'm so proud of you. This is a huge step for you. I mean, you've done a lot. You've done some incredible things in your life, and you are, of course, doing a lot more.
Yeah.
But to me, what you're doing right now is, it's the point. It's the wound. It's
I love the wellness world. I love spirituality.
Yeah.
I started a business because of this. Because of my passion, and I did it from my heart. And I felt, I read so much. I have such interesting conversations with you over the phone, over my walks, and with so many other people. I meet inspiring authors, speakers, and every person who is employed at Illuminations, I actually have my own personal relationship with them. And we have these amazing conversations. And I always think, this could be the perfect conversation for a podcast.
Yes.
But for so many years, I still never got that, I guess it was the desire, or it was maybe the fear, or that remnants of that fear still remaining within me. Yeah. And then, as you know, in the last 1.5 years, I've gone through like the dark night of the soul experience, and I've been pretty much the worst that anyone can ever be, apart from death, of course. And that just kind of made me so immune to everything, and, made me realize that, that I'm still alive and still breathing in spite of the worst happening to me. Yeah. So I think I can now do anything. And so I think that has led me to also, it's really not just about me and self-focus, that through my podcast, my whole intention was to help people live happier, healthier, and more purposeful lives by helping them awaken to the power of their mind, body, and energy. And through the conversations I have with amazing guests like you, if they can gain value from that and it can change their life, then I guess I've done my job. So it's really not so much about me anymore. I think the next part of my journey is more really about other people. Because even when I started Illuminations, I was 23 years old, So whilst we gain so much knowledge, it's the integration of that knowledge, and the application of it through experience. And after 20 years, being in the wellness space and experiencing so many things, I perhaps at some level had not applied everything to my own life. But in the last 2 years, I've been in a situation, where everything I've learned in the last 20 years has come into practice. Because when you have no other choice, you go back to your own self, right? You go back to the inner gifted resources that you have. And that's when I realized that, the power of this work is so intense and so healing, that if it can do this for me and it can bring me to where I am, I'm sure it could help so many other people. And that's kind of how I kind of, am working through resolving the last bit of shame. So it was a very interesting conversation, because when we spoke, you had mentioned to me, you're so hardworking, you're so focused, you're so disciplined. And I realized, whilst I am those things, a lot of those actions were driven by shame. Like, for example, I was like, oh, I have to walk like this, or I have to go to the gym. It's because I didn't like something about myself that I wanted to change. But now I'm slowly making that journey towards self-compassion.
You're being soft with yourself.
Exactly.
You're telling yourself, Sons, it does, okay. First of all, I mean, I have to say that watching you go through this, what you're going through, is such a privilege, because, there's not many people in this world who can die and come back to life.
Yeah, I pretty much died.
Who can die and come. And I've seen how you've died in the past 1.5 years, And that's the power of 40. Sorry if I revealed your age.
It's okay.
But that's the power of 40. And I everything we do till 40 is practice. And then after 40 is when we live our true lives. And if we are brave enough, like you are, and I had my death experience, if we are brave enough to die, then we are coming back to life. And you've come back to life. Yeah. And you've come back to life in a way where you've looked at yourself and you said, nothing matters.
Right.
I can live without anything.
True.
I can do anything if I just have myself.
Right.
And that is the point that you get to when you really die, and death precedes life in so many beautiful ways. And half the reason why we don't know how to live is because we don't know how to die. And shame doesn't allow us to fully live.
Right.
Because we're not fully willing to enter the root of that shame,
Right.
which is the deep, deep lack of self-worth and pain and sadness and absolute agony that we have within us.
That's so beautifully
You
articulated.
know, it's just we don't go there because we're so scared. But the beauty of this universe, like what you've been through, Soniyaa, is when you don't go there at 40, it actually starts at 36. But then by the time you reach 40, if you haven't gone there, which most of us have not, you get a life circumstance that tells you either you go there, okay, and then you really throw yourself in the dark end and you live through the pain that you've avoided for so long,
Right.
you know, or then you don't, and then stuff will keep happening. You will continue to deteriorate.
Right.
You know, who knows what you would have done? Maybe gotten harder on yourself, gotten more brittle, more like, you know, full of, how did I not, why is my life not good? What's wrong with me that this is not working out?
Yeah.
And then you just combust, you know, like that's just what happens.
And strangely, I'm more grateful than I ever have been.
Yes, because you've come back to life.
Yeah,
And so I wanna say one thing, which I think is so beautiful when you think about not really facing the unknown of where the shame comes from, okay? Because it is scary.
Right.
Because it's our survival, our coping mechanism to say, oh, don't go there because if you go there, you'll die. You know, that's why you don't go there. And you reach out to other people or you avoid other people or you push yourself. You don't go there, right? But then if you tell yourself that it's okay to, I mean, you'll go there, it'll be horribly hard, but it'll be even harder to not go there, okay? I read the most beautiful thing by this psychiatrist, Dr. Stanislav Grof, who is incredible. And his entire work is on, you know, the process of pregnancy and birth, and how the birth experience that you have, how it impacts you for the rest of your life, okay? And a lot of his work is on that. And did you know that when a mother has contractions, with each contraction, the oxygen supply of a child is cut off?
Oh, wow.
So a child is dying, not knowing whether they're ever going to live again, when they're squeezed through that birth canal, away from this warm womb into the unknown. Suddenly they can't breathe. Suddenly they're suffocating. Suddenly that water is gone. We're aquatic beings. Suddenly we're not in water anymore. We're pushed through this canal. You don't know where you're going. Death precedes life.
Right.
We have been taught the way to live is to die.
Right.
You know, and so the way out of shame is through the shame. And to go through shame, you have to die. You have to enter and surrender to pain. So cut off everything that you depend on. So when people say, how do you heal? What is a fast track to healing? Come on, I mean, I've been going to therapy and like, but why? What is it that you turn to for your sanity and solace every day? Cut that off. Cut it off completely. Cut it all off. And then be uncomfortable.
Right.
Let your body shake without it. You know, and when you start feeling that discomfort, then sit in it with that energy that we spoke about before. I'm here, this is so uncomfortable. You'll slowly start healing.
Of course, you have practices and tools to help you regulate your nervous system so that you don't have to do it like with the shock to your system, of course.
Yeah.
But you know, like another thing that I also read about is about understanding that you are not your shame. Your shame is just an experience of you. So for example, another question to ask yourself, which part of me is feeling that shame? Because you're whole and complete as you are.
Yeah.
It's only a certain experience in your life which is stored as an imprint. And then if another event or circumstance resurfaces, it reminds you of the same imprint from the past. So it's nothing but an imprint or an information that your mind has stored. And that is triggering the feeling of shame. So rather than feeling that you are shame, it's a part of you that's feeling that shame. And so you kind of create a sense of detachment and become a witness consciousness to your experiences. And you neither label them as negative or positive, because we always have preference to what makes us feel good, and we always have aversion to what makes us feel bad.
Yes.
You know, and when we can see both those experiences as just an experience without actually labeling it, judging it, and calling it a limiting experience. Because as human beings, you're always going to want to run away from what makes you feel bad and want to run towards what makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So my favorite author, Michael Singer, who inspires me
Yes.
every single day, as you know, I'm a
Yes.
huge fan of his. He talks about becoming the witness consciousness to any painful or shameful experience in your life. So
Yeah.
that's really beautiful. So any last words?
You know, what you said is exactly it. I mean, for me, I think that a lot of that starts with your inner child.
Right.
You know, the part of you that is in pain, that doesn't feel good enough, is that child part of you.
Right.
You know, a lot of the time and that child part of you could be 3, could be 5, could be 12, could be 16. You know, that imprint at that point in time.
Right.
And when you when you love that child and allow that child to cry within you, then you'll automatically become the witness consciousness.
Right.
You know, but in the act of love, you are already distancing yourself, but not in a way of I'm looking at you. It's more like I'm holding you.
Right.
You know, I'm not just looking at you, I'm with you. I'm with you. But just by saying I and you, there is a distance created.
Correct.
But it's a kind of distance where it's not I'm looking at you. It's a distance where I'm always with you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I understand that you lead a lot of inspiring workshops, seminars, especially on parenting and how to parent a healthy and happy child. So what's next from here? What are your plans? And
Well, you know what my plans are,
Yeah.
but I'm not, you know, I there's so much going on. But I will say that there's something that I've been working on for a while that hopefully I'll be able to announce soon.
Yes.
And then there's something else that I'm working on with a good friend of mine, which I will also talk about soon. But it's about, you know, I think I grew up, our parents are always doing the best that they can, but they're not well. You know, a lot of us are not well. And I think the biggest gift a parent can give a child is health.
Right.
So the next thing I'm working on is to do with that. It's just health, not healing, but health, your body.
yeah.
How do you make your body work for you?
Your somatics, yeah.
Yeah, just your body. Like, you know, sometimes you're like, how do I even get well or do anything if I'm constantly tired, if I'm unwell, so how do you start with true healing with the body?
Right, right.
You know, so you can be well. So then you can get the strength to do your mind, your other work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. So I'll keep you posted.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kav. It was
Thank you.
amazing and inspiring
Thank you.
and so beautiful.
Thank you.
And yeah, we wish you all the very best. And yes,
Thank you. And you are amazing. I hope you know that.
thank you. Love you.
Love you.
So thank you so much for joining us for yet another episode of the Illuminations Podcast. If you liked the show, please share the love and rate the show, share it with your friends, and follow us. So we look forward to seeing you soon again. Take care and live life. Thanks for tuning in to the Illuminations Podcast. We love having you here. It is our mission to be a beacon of light on your journey towards conscious and mindful living. In our weekly episode, we bring you inspiring change makers in the field of spirituality, healing, personal growth, and wellness who share their insight and expertise so you can navigate your way to a happier, healthier, and more purposeful life.